Hello, ladies. I hope all is well with you and that you are making great plans for improvement. And today I'm going to talk to you about homemaking and other things that help the homemaker make life worthwhile for everyone and give peace to herself. And I think that you might find it interesting. Before I get started, would you please go click the link in the description below if you're on YouTube, and go to the place on which I have embedded this video. Just scroll up and you'll see it. It's on a post. It's the first post that comes up. And watch it there, because then you will not have to endure any ads. And also you'll get to see the other things that were put into preparing this lesson or this edifying talk, and maybe some pictures around the mats and some other inspiring things and some books I've read. And so please go do that rather than watch it here on YouTube. And today I wanted to start out by saying, let's just leave that it's first day of the week, let's just leave that old world behind. Spend a few minutes without stress if we possibly can. I was thinking a lot about that because homemakers now are enduring some stress. And I remember in the olden days, it was only at work where you would get this stress, or only at institutions like colleges and schools, or any kind of worldly rushing and deadlines. I never heard the word deadline till very late in my life. I didn't even know what they were talking about when it first came out. I don't know how many of you vital people can remember the first time you heard that word. And it's just a terrible word, isn't it? And I know that some of you are starting to homeschool your young children and want to maybe keep out some of these things and plan on them having their own work and their own service that they provide, so that they won't have to go to work for, remember we used to call it the man back in the hippie days, working for the man every night and day. I always told my children when they were growing up, you don't have to work for the man. When we get finished with this, you'll be self-sufficient. You'll be able to work for yourself. And that is the way it has happened. They're all able to take care of themselves and work for themselves. And it's not as daunting as you might think. And of course, with parents behind them and encouraging them, and even being very supportive in the early days when they're just getting started. And it's also important, I think, to encourage yourself not to be under stress, to say to yourself everything is going to be okay. My children and I have been discussing stress quite a bit because they didn't grow up with it. We were homeschooled, and we did a lot of things that were not competitive, and with other people. We stayed away from crowds and with comparisons and things that create stress. And we went with our talents. And for instance, in anything, whether it's getting ready for the day, you can be stressed. You can put people under stress if you hurry. And that's one of the reasons I like to tell you, when you begin your day at home, if you're a homemaker, I think the most important thing is wearing something that makes you happy, and putting a clean apron on. In the olden days, we used to have the days of the week aprons, and they were always clean and freshly starched. Do people do that anymore? Do they press or iron anymore? I don't know. But those things, even pressing, sometimes when we were younger, we were given the job of pressing small things, so like a pillowcase or something like that, to get us used to how to iron. And I found that that was one of the things that brought me peace and less anxiety, less stress. And sometimes maybe we need to go back to the things that helped us alleviate stress. I told you in a few videos ago how my grandmother and mother-in-law, and some of these people that were born in the late 1800s and early 1900s used to like to hand wash a few things. And we would say, well, we have a washing machine now, you don't have to do that anymore. But they wanted to. They wanted to feel the water slushing through their fingers, and they said that it calmed them down and lowered their blood pressure and gave them peace. Well, it's the same with other things like ironing or sewing for yourself, even hand sewing. There was a lady that had a blog years ago about hand sewing and how portable it is and how you can sit in a more comfortable position and you can take it by the light and you can take your time, and how much calm that gives you. And there are many things we have given up that give us calm. And I think that's very important. So the first thing you do is self-care. Take care of yourself. Take care of your appearance. Make sure you like the way that you look, at least for now, and have great plans for improvement. You know, I'm always looking to be stronger and younger and smarter, and I'm never happy with what I am. I just look back, and it's awful when you get to be vitals. You start, because you've got more time to look back on and see all the opportunities you just kind of were in a daze and walked past, or all the things you could have done. And then also when you get vital, you're behind in everything. And because now you have the family archives. Now you have all the things you collected that were to do with your family when they were at home, or even if you didn't have a family, you still have a past now. So you've got records of it, and you've got a few things. And so now is a time to get that taken care of, and it may regulate your brain in some way and make you feel more peaceful. But I picked up this book again the other day, The Spirit of Loveliness by Emily Barnes, and I wondered what it was like without the jacket, but she had her initials right here engraved on it in gold, and I liked what the book looked like without the jacket. Sometimes the jackets I like to keep them on because they do protect the book, and but the jackets aren't, as pretty as the book, the hard book. So I wanted to read something from her. She wrote this, I believe, in 1973. That was, oh, wait a minute, not 1973, 1992. 1992. Okay, so this was now this might seem silly to some of you, that you have home goods around you, you have Hobby Lobby, you have all kinds of opportunities to keep your house looking nice and fresh. You've got products and equipment and brooms and things that we never had, and so you're wondering why we would be so excited about this. Well, it was the first time people of my generation found a book or a person or a class that wanted to share how to make your home comfortable and beautiful and not just clean. When I was growing up, see, there's some of the drawings. That's the front door. She talks about how important that entrance way is. But when I was growing up in the 1950s, the important thing was just, the grueling hard work and the, keeping the floors clean and keeping the dishes done. And when I read this, I just felt a sense of luxury. So that's why we liked it. And even though some of you didn't have to look at life that way, many of us felt a great relief listening to what she said. And she said, your home is an unmistakable mark of an expression of yourself. And I feel that way, same way about how you get yourself prepared in the day you are expressing yourself to your loved ones and those within your influence. And even if you don't know no one, when you go somewhere, even to the grocery store, you're an influence just by the way you look and the way you care for yourself. It gives other people peace. And so she says, a welcoming home reflects the personality of the person who makes it. Well, I had never heard that before. And so it was just a beautiful book for me. And it says your home should be uniquely and beautifully you. So mixing homemaking, Home Interiors helped us a lot too, because it was a company that sold products that embellished different areas of your home and helped you to enjoy cleaning up more, because you knew that you had something nice to look at, or you had lit a little scented candle, or you were listening to something beautiful. And this was such a different side of homemaking for many of us. And leave me a comment if you understand what I'm saying. And that's what many of the women are doing who put blogs up on YouTube about their homes and about the things that they put in it, and they'll give you a home tour because it's an expression of themselves and the things that they like. A welcoming home is a reflection of everyone who lives there. Your music stand, your husband's Audubon prints, your son's baseball trophy can peacefully coexist. Together they can speak a welcome to anyone who visits. And she talks about how some of your expressions of the home can be limited, but still you can find a way. And she says, most important, a welcoming home is a place of a blessing, a place where you are made aware of God's blessings, and you pass these blessings on to others. So she just talks about the spiritual aspect of the home. And so she says, what do you see first when you walk through the door? And so if I get behind, or it gets I get a little bit off kilter and in a hurry, sometimes I will pretend that I am visiting. And I'm a visitor, and I will come into the front area, up on the steps, into the front door, and see things in a different way, and notice things that are maybe a bit off or discordant, or things that need to be straightened out or put away, whatever. And so there's so much to read here. And I wanted to read particularly one about self-care, because I've been talking about this new phenomenon of anxiety that has besieged our society and crept into our homes. And I have a few questions about it. And this was written in 1992, when people had been feeling it for a little while, were unfamiliar with it. And she says there is nothing, she suggests that you indulge yourself with things that make you feel good. And she talks about just little touches in your home. She said, what is the first thing you do when you pick a flower? You put it to your nose to enjoy the fragrance. How does it make you feel? Maybe it brings a pleasant memory of that little girl inside of you, the time you picked a flower for your mother or your grandmother. This is just a general idea for children too, and we all have to keep that childhood in us. I think they tried to get rid of our childhood so we wouldn't have anything peaceful to fall back on emotionally when anxiety came. But if you can remember the first time you picked a flower, or what a joy it was to bring a flower to your mother. And she said other things to do. She suggests put on music while you do your housework. And then she says there is nothing self-indulgent or worldly about such small pleasures when we approach them with a spirit of gratitude. I believe a lot of this so-called self-care, all it was caring for yourself so that you would be healthy mentally and physically, looking after yourself, doing things that give you calmness. And it wasn't particularly expensive or self-indulgent or selfish, as much as it was keeping yourself up so that others could, so you could enjoy others, and so they could be reassured in your care of them. It says, as long as you are thankful for God's gifts to help us go about our tasks He has given. One of my friends, she'll text me once in a while and tell me her list of self-care, 3 things. She says they recommend list 6 things and do 3 of them. One of them was that she sat outside with her, whatever it is she drinks. I think she likes frothy coffee. She has a frother. And she sits out in the sunrise. That's just when the sun is coming up. And you can check online for sunrise in your area. And she always tells me that the sunrise will reset your body in some way. I have felt better in many ways by trying to observe the sunrise. And also, I see sometimes early enough the morning star, which comes just as the sun rises, just before the sunrise, which is interesting because the scriptures talk about morning star and refer to Christ as the morning star. It's the first light that comes before the sun comes up. And so let me continue. When we feel that the little things in our lives are pleasant and satisfying, it's amazing how the outside stresses and disappointments fade. Now, she had a great deal of disappointment in her life, and she must have really been brave to write about how to pick yourself up and get strong again and enjoy life. When we feel that the little things in our lives are pleasant and satisfying, it's amazing how the outside stresses and disappointments fade, at least for the moment. We can then regroup, prioritize, and pray, cultivating the spirit of femininity and preparing ourselves to be God's people in the world. And she talks about being surrounded by beauty, and she approaches everything, the eyesight and making the home appealing, what you hear, what you see, what you smell, what you feel, and what you taste. And she talks about taking care of your body, and she says take a little extra time to take care of yourself. We look at that as maybe being too selfish, and then we wonder why we as women feel so run down. So that was one of the things that I wanted you to read. And then I marked another page here where she talks about a place for stillness. And I'm going to get into the home as a place for stillness. Unfortunately, the world gets in sometimes through arguments, through maybe some people in your family, whether it's extended family, they have arguments that they want to talk about that all come from the world's view of things, and they want to draw you into it because they don't like it, that you're not interested in it, and they think perhaps you're getting too narrow. And remember, we used to be called narrow-minded. Remember that? A place for stillness. Making space in your schedule for quiet meditation is absolutely vital to infusing your life with the spirit of stillness. And I was kind of scrolling through information on the web on the value of being quiet, the value of shutting your mouth. I've often said, put a seal on my lips, oh Lord, because most of the time when there's some kind of anxiety, I can trace it back to my part in it of maybe giving too much information, talking too much, making a remark. And whereas if I had sat still and been quiet, I could have maybe listened it through and it would have solved itself. But stillness and serenity, I'd like to name one of my rooms Serenity. But stillness and serenity, does that remind you of Serenity Lane? The place for people to recover from addiction. I was teaching one of my grandchildren about making tea for herself because we use the tea bags usually, dip them in, and we don't always make a pot of tea, but I wanted her to know that you don't just let that tea bag sit in there and let it just get all almost so strong it's tasteless. And I told her, I won't allow tea abuse while you're here. And so I showed her how to make a delicate cup of tea. Tea is more delicate than coffee. You can't really enjoy it as much if you make it too strong. And that's why a lot of people don't like tisanes and herbals and stuff, because they just taste awful to them. Part of it is the way it's made. But whatever you make, even if you put a few berries in a cup of hot water or something else, I tell them don't make it too strong, and I say that's tea abuse. And they were teasing me the other day and say, well, Mima, are you going to put us in tea abuse Serenity Lane or something like that? Serenity Lane. I'm going to obey you because I don't want to go to Serenity Lane for tea abuse. So they know now what I want. So she says, Stillness and serenity involve more than a chunk of your schedule. You can also nurture the spirit of stillness by the way you relate to others and by the way you arrange your activities and environment. Making a point of putting yourself in places that help you slow down. Tune out the clamor and listen to the quiet. There was a little book that was going around in the late 1980s, 1990s called Listen to the Quiet. I think I might still have a copy of it. And you still might find it, little hardback gift book. Discover the places that foster stillness in your soul, your garden, a library. I know several ladies have put little round tables near the bookshelf in their house. Just all they had was a little bookshelf, but they wanted a library, so they set a little table and chair there. And so you have somewhere else to go besides the kitchen table. Your terrace, and go there regularly. If you don't know about such a place, ask God to lead you to one. Remember, ours is the God who leads us beside the still waters. If we will ask, He will take us somewhere that restores our soul. So she talks about how closer to home, things like if she can't go somewhere. I've just about stopped wanting to go anywhere. I want to get my life straightened out here, get my house in order so that should I get sick or debilitated, that the children aren't stuck with going through everything. So that's what I want to do. I kind of made an effort not to go anywhere beyond the grocery store right now till I can get that straightened out. And she says that she finds that physical exercise actually helps her nurture the spirit of stillness. So she walks. And she says she invariably ends up thinking and praying and praising. And she says at the same time, something inside slows her down. It's as if moving my feet brings stillness to my soul. Then she talks about being closer to... By the way, I have started a new exercise program that I'm enjoying, and it sounds like a woman in England, and she teaches exercises, and I will put a link on that for you. You can find a 5-minute one for you. She's a little more vigorous than I prefer, but she suggests you put her on mute and put on your favorite music. And so I really enjoy that. And if she does 10 movements, I'll just do 1 or 2, but it's better than nothing, ladies, to follow one of these. It changes the balance in your brain, I think. I always feel a little bit better. I remember I talked about it a few videos ago about how we homemakers often pick up a discordant feeling in the air, and it's because we don't have a lot of noise around us. So if you're used to being out in the world, or you've been working, or you're somewhere else, you constantly hear noise, so you don't get a chance to pick up on some of this stuff and how to get rid of it through activity and walking, and also stillness. So she says, closer to home, you can nurture the spirit of stillness in your home. Soft fabrics and carpets reduce noise levels. Reducing clutter instills a sense of peace. And quiet corners and private crannies. A chair and a lamp in a corner behind a screen encourages moments of quiet. And she says, decorate your home and furnish your home with a spirit of stillness in mind. Soft colors have been shown to have calming effect on the spirit. Plants, soft, unobtrusive music, or those from nature. And of course, cultivating a godly spirit within yourself, keeping your voice low and gentle, respecting the privacy and space of those who live around you, and the healing influence of stillness, she says, is more precious than ever today, when noise and clamor seem to close in on us from all sides. Most of us work, play, and go to school to a constant background of traffic and TV. Well, now, in her day, maybe not so much, but now it's just noisic, It's that ever beating music coming from even the grocery store. I noticed the other day I had put it off too long and I had to go out and get a few supplies, and when I got back I had a hard time settling down. But I had been exposed to so much of the music and the words and things like that that were just swirling or still around in my head, and I had to get a cup of tea and go for a walk and make another list and start over to get rid of it. To people who are overstimulated and worn down by the constant barrage of modern living, the spirit of stillness can be a lifesaver. With all this in mind, it seems natural to look at our homes with the spirit of stillness where it can reign the most beautifully. So, if you can, I got this at Thrift Books. Now, Thrift Books, you have to be careful. There are other online book places. With Thrift Books, you have to be careful. Sometimes the covers and stuff are a bit beat up, which is kind of disappointing. They will give you a choice of getting a new copy, though. Sometimes you can do that. Pay a little bit more for that. And so I wanted to tell you also about a lady who teaches English. And I found her when I was looking for Jane Austen quotes online, and she had one particular video, which I'll try to put the link there for you, where she does her favorite Jane Austen quotes, and that's all. And the one that I found that was most interesting was something I was talking about in my previous video. How Marianne just thought that it was healthier just to let every emotion that troubled her be known to everyone, and she accused Eleanor of being unfeeling because you're always so composed and always doing the right thing, and where's your heart, she said. And so it's one of the quotes that this lady quoted in her video was, and I'm sure she was talking about Marianne. She said, she was without any power. She was without any power because she was without any desire of command over herself. Now, isn't that interesting? Do you remember some of the other quotes of Jane Austen? And another one she had here was, Eleanor agreed to it all because she did not believe he deserved the honor of a rational opposition. There are just some people that even your most brilliant replies will want to argue with you, or they're too simple to deal with it or understand it. And I thought that was cute. Eleanor agreed to it all because she did not believe he deserved the honor of a rational opposition. She was yeah, that's okay with me. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about anxiety, because with it you can't run your home or do your homeschooling with too much anxiety, and you mustn't put the children under anxiety except to give them a conscience to be cooperative with you, and in that must be done in love. And so let's stop for a minute and see if you can remember when you first felt anxiety, when you first experienced it. Now, I've talked to people who thought that they'd always experienced it, that they'd always had it. But by thinking about it, they were able to point back to a time when they were truly relaxed and happy. And then finding the first time they felt anxiety, probably couldn't identify it at the time as to what it was. It's just a feeling of panic. And so let's stop for a minute and try to think back when the very first happiest moment you had, the first feeling of happiness that you can remember, probably something very simple, something your mother told you, or your father made for you, or some little thing they said to you or were doing with you, some small thing. And then go on to the first time you had your first anxious moment. And I got to thinking, I looked up many things about silence. I've been going all through the videos on people who have discovered how beneficial silence is. Just like when we sleep, sleep is so beneficial because it renews our bodies, it renews our brain cells, and how important exercise is too, because that's very renewing for us. And many of the people suggested that silence, learning to talk less, learning to have less noise around you is also renewing. And so let's take some of this, and that you can get energy. You can rebuild your energy from a lot of these things like silence and rest, that actually rebuilds your mind and rebuilds your energy. And so to keep children from anxiety, I don't know if you ever knew, back in the olden days when we were young, there'd be somebody that was biting their nails. I never knew about that till I saw a little girl biting her nails. She was anxious. And where does this anxiety come from, and how dangerous it is? Because now people are suffering from what's called cortisol, which affects all your body organs, your liver, everything, and it's from stress. And so how can we prevent it in our children is to try to remember when you first felt it and see if you could not do that in your home with your children, not be in a hurry. And I was reading that poem, Hurry the Baby, but we ought to apply it to all of ourselves. If you can think of rushing and where's your shoes? Come on, hurry up. It's time to go. It's time to do this. And it can even sour children on going to worship. When worship, they're told Jesus loves them. God created the world and all the wonderful, miraculous things he's done, and all the things Jesus has done for us, and then start yelling at them, hurry up, we have to go to worship, and getting mad at them because they didn't wake up in time, and putting a lot of stress on you. And so that's why we start the night before, making an easy exit, getting things out that you're going to need, making it easy, and making it easy to come home too. I remember our mothers used to have something cooking when they got home, or already cooked, so all they had to do was reheat it. Now we have the slow cookers, and making it special and pleasant. And there's no sense being cross. Oh, well, at the time you're taking them to hear a wonderful message from God above. And so many children have grown up and left their faith because of this cruel attitude that people have. So let's be careful with that and not put stress on in that. And it's the same with homeschooling. Let's make this, when you decide to homeschool your children, make it a school of love and peace and stillness and time to think, time to observe things, and don't rush them through life so fast. Just teach them how to enjoy the moment and the little things. So we can stop maybe future anxiety. We can maybe stop this whole thing through our own homeschooling of our children, and we can maybe stop the anxiousness, at least at our doorstep, at least with our children. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this, idea of being careful what we say, because we create anxiety for ourselves. Let's try not to create our own anxiety. And this was from Ephesians 4. It says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Give no opportunity to the devil. It says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for building up, edifying, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. I think that's such a beautiful, is Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for edifying, which means building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Yes, it takes us a long time sometimes to know when to say something and when to not. And if we are busy airing all of our grievances and all of our disappointments and all the ways people have wronged us, then it can be very corrupting, and it can create anxiety for other people. And says, let no corrupting talk, talking about the horrible deeds that are done, the Bible talks about, that are done in secret, that should not be talked about. Everybody knows about it, but does not mean that we have to go and corrupt an innocent little audience of ours, or a pleasant little get-together with ladies, by talking about corrupt things and all the cheating and lying and evil in the world. You can get that on the news. You don't really have to have that in your home, or in your instruction at home, or in your Bible classes. It says, let no corrupting talk. You have to think about what you're saying, because it could corrupt someone who is not stable, and they might be glom onto something you said that would lead them astray. So you have to be careful. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths. But only, do you know what corrupting is? It's when something has had acid put on it and it destroyed it, or it's just been left alone to gather moss and to decay and to rot. But only such is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. That's the way to avoid sharing too much. That's the way to avoid trying to make people feel bad, or for something that happened to you. That is the way to make the home a very nice place to be, a place you'd rather be. And it used to be, back in the olden days, for us vital people, the home was the best place to be. It was the escape from what the world was pushing on us. But there's nothing new under the sun, and there were always those who would ruin it, even in the home, by being harsh, by being critical. And it says in verse 31 of Ephesians 4, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. So when you're raising your children, remember that word, kindness and tender-heartedness, on your behalf too, what you do, but also to teach them to be forgiving, tender-hearted, and kind back to you. But this stuff here, bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and slander, and malice, does that sound like somebody having a blow-up? Sometimes people stage blow-ups in the home, or even people that aren't related to you. Some of the people I've been around over the years, in other places that I've lived, other countries that I lived, that's just natural for some people. They think it's healthy to do that. Wrath and anger and slander and clamor and malice. And so here's the anecdote. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. If you would have that on a little plaque, it's Ephesians 4, verse 32. Have that on a little plaque and have your children memorize at least the first part. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. At least make that the theme of your homeschool if you're homeschooling. If not, make it the theme of yourself and your home, because I do homeschool you a little bit, but really I want you to be autodidactic, where you can be self-learning and take care of yourself and teach yourself. And we don't need to have mentors, particularly. We now have the scriptures, we have enough information, and we can go by what's best for us, what works best for us in our home. We don't have to pattern our homes and our home life after somebody else, because we're all extremely unique. And I think that is all I have for you today, because I misplaced some of the books that I was going to bring to you. And I hope that you have a lovely day today, and that you'll have peace in your home. And remember to go to the link to listen to this and not listen to it on YouTube. And I appreciate your viewership, and I'm honored that you would take time to listen while you work. And I hope this has been edifying to you. And I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Stay close to Christ. Bye.